Good morning. I'm Marge Stockton. I will be your online worship leader today. During the service, we recommend you have your Zoom screen set to speaker view. This is Common Ground, our celebration of worship for people of many paths who are gathering virtually to share in the responsible search for meaning and truth. Pathways is a warm and open community where all who come with open minds and kind hearts are welcome, regardless of ability, age, race, gender identity, or sexual orientation. If you're visiting with us for the first time today, we welcome you to our virtual service and hope you'll visit us in person when we can be together again. Please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat and to send us a note about your visit or ask for more information. Email office@pathwaysuu.org. We hope that all who join us here today find this a safe and meaningful place to worship. Our service is a little different this morning. We will forego our usual congregational songs because, as you will see, the music is all included in our speaker's presentation. As we virtually light our chalice this morning, please join me in these words by Paul Sprecher. We light this chalice to honor the memory of those who have come before us, kindling flames of wisdom in dark times, willing to challenge orthodoxy even at great personal risk, giving us a legacy of freedom and a love of truth, a legacy that warms our hearts and lights our paths. I invite you now to join in a renewal of our sacred promises. Please read along with me. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve human need to the end that all souls shall grow in harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other. This morning, we are so pleased to welcome Keith Harris. Dyslexic from birth, Keith shares how he went from almost being placed in a reading class with kids with intellectual and developmental disabilities to helping change the application process at one of the most prestigious private music conservatories in the Midwest. Praised for the distinctive warmth of his voice and exceptional musicianship, American baritone Keith Harris is captivating audiences in his performances on both operatic and concert stages. Last season, Keith performed the role of Miller in Better God's Concert with Little Opera Theater of New York, performed as a soloist in Handel's Messiah with Helena Symphony, Schonar in La Boheme with Opera Carolina and Toledo Opera, sang at a fundraising event with Annapolis Opera, Carmina Burana with Pacific Northwest Ballet, and joined the Metropolitan Opera for their production of Werther. These are only a few of his performances in operas, operettas, and musicals all over the country. Our call to worship this morning is by Katie Romano Griffin. Come, let us enter this space of hope and community. Come, let us enter this space with our sorrows, our joys, our passion and compassion. Come, let us enter this space with the stories of our ancestors, for their strength and wisdom beats in our hearts. Come into this space, present to the beloved companions who move beside us. Come into this space, mindful that together we are building a future for other generations. Come into this space and let us worship. Our reading this morning is called Disobey Me, a poem by Sally Gardner, read for us by Catherine Gunter. Catherine?
They told me I was dyslexic. It didn't describe me. Belonged in the library of words I can't spell. No matter how many times they tell you, just try harder. Sound it out. Simple when you think about it. Stop giving me the third degree. Don't put me down. Don't make me fret. I can't learn my alphabet. It doesn't go in any logical order. The stress gives me attention deficit disorder. At school, I wanted to go it alone. They told me that's unwise. They called me unteachable. I was unreachable. Stuck in the classroom, broken by rules, by buttons and ties. But I don't like the little words. They always disobey me. The does doses up and is higher than a dude should be. So they tested me. They corrected me and found my results poor and told me I wasn't concentrating. They expected more. I tried to get along. I never made the score. And I think about Chaucer in those freedom days when no one found your spelling faulty for the extra E's and A's. Mr. Shakespeare, I wonder, would they let him write his plays? Oh, woe is me, might just be graffiti in a bog. And Hamlet, the name, he called his prize fighter dog. But I don't like the little words. They always disobey me. The dough doses dope and is higher than a do should be. You say that you're a writer, but that's absurd. How do you write if you cannot spell the words? Listen, it's not the way I spell that makes me want to write. It's the way I see the world that makes me want to fight. I challenge you, see the words as I do. Feel them sting your skin. The meaning often shocking, the way the nib goes in. To relish, discombobulate, not to moderate your passion, not to murder language in an artificial fashion. Words are our servants. We are not their slaves. It matters not if we spell them wrong. It matters what they say. But I don't like the little words. They always disobey me. The does doses dope and is higher than a dough should be.
Thank you, Catherine. And now, without further ado, and with only a brief transition here, Keith Harris. Stop share. Okay. Oops, wrong one. Sorry, people. Well, I had it up.
start at the top, you're certain to drop. You've got to watch your timing. Better begin by climbing up the ladder if you're going to last. You can't make it fast, and nobody wants a winner. Give me a strong beginner. Easy does it, my friend. Conserve your fine endurance. Easy does it, my friend, for that's your life insurance. While you are young, take it rung after rung after rung. It's not where you start, it's where you finish. It's not how you go, it's how you land. 100 to 1 shot, they call him the klutz. Could outrun the favorite, all he needs is the guts. Your final return will not diminish, and you can be the cream of the crop. It's not where you start, it's where you finish, and you're gonna finish on top.
Good morning, and a very special thank you to Marge, who I'm going to have running back and forth between that video and my talk today. She's got her hands full. About 15 years after I graduated from college, I learned that I was almost not accepted into the institution where I got my degree, that my acceptance was highly controversial, and that my success in the program would ultimately help to change the application process for future students. I have dyslexia, so if you grew up in the 80s, that basically meant you were slow, or as I always felt, dumb. And how slow was I? Well, when I was in the 3rd grade, my teacher suggested to my mother that I be moved from the lowest level reading group into the reading group with kids with intellectual and developmental disabilities. My mother, who also has dyslexia, had a different idea. She said, "Here's an idea. Why don't you move him to the regular level reading group?" My teacher said, "Oh, Mrs. Harris, I don't think you understand. Your son, I know my son. He's not dumb. He needs time to figure things out, and as his teacher, it's your job to give him that time." Go, Mom. Clearly, my mom understood that it's between 3rd and 4th grade when students go from learning to read to reading to learn. But my teacher didn't have that vision. In fact, she insisted that I'd fail. But an amazing thing happened. I was getting a D in the lowest level reading group, and I continued to get a D in the regular level reading group. It wasn't the information that I couldn't comprehend, it was comprehension in general. 75% of 9-year-olds who struggle with reading will continue to struggle with reading for the rest of their lives, and I was dangerously close to being part of that group. In fact, passing classes became so difficult for me that my parents came to celebrate a C. Now, most kids get ice cream for straight A's. I got ice cream for no D's. And in fact, if someone had told me that my future would consist of memorizing hundreds of pages of music, often in foreign languages, I probably would have had a nervous breakdown. But music actually became my greatest inspiration and my greatest motivation. When I was 9 years old, I joined the Barbershop Harmony Society, and I sang in the chorus where my father was the director, and it was the one place where I was treated like one of the guys. It was the one place where I was one of the cool kids. And as long as I got all C's or better, I could continue participating in what had become my favorite event of the entire week. And later in life, this would lead me to sing at New York City's famous Birdland Jazz Club on the Miranda Sings Show with my little brother.
I gotta know right now. I gotta know if you is or you is always late anytime. We have a date, but I love her. Oh yeah, yes I love her. Whoa, I'm gonna walk up to her gate and see if I can get it straight, 'cause I love her. I'm gonna ask her. Is you or is you ain't my baby? You're my baby now. The way you acting lately makes me die. Work out. You's still my baby, baby, the one for me. It seems my flame in your heart's done gone out. But I tell you, a woman is a creature that has always been strange. Just when you're sure of what you'll find, she's gone and made a change. Is you is or is you ain't my baby? Don't mess with me. Maybe baby found somebody new, or is my baby still my baby true? My baby, watch out. Is you is or is you ain't my baby? The way that you're acting lately makes me die. You's gonna be my little baby, baby. You better tell me yes or no, or baby I'm walking out, right out. Woman, you are a creature that I can't get off of my plate. Sometimes I believe I figure you out, and sometimes you drive me insane. Don't tell me if you is or is you ain't my baby. Don't mess with me. Maybe baby found somebody new, or is my baby still my baby? Come, baby, don't drive me crazy, baby. Won't you say that you'll be mine? Baby, say you're
So, my disability, as it's commonly referred to, actually became my greatest asset because it forced me to learn how I learn. And that's a very powerful tool. And this first started for me in the 4th grade. That's when help first came along. Mr. Harris, would you stay after class? Yes, sir. How are things at home, Keith? Fine. Your mom's still in seminary? She got straight A's again. As I mentioned earlier, my mom also has dyslexia. And after she finished her bachelor's degree, she was told not to go to graduate school because she wasn't smart enough and she would fail. She got straight A's again. So, your mom still go to seminary during the week and come home on the weekends? Yup. So it's just you, your father, and your brother take care of the house during the week. My job is the dishes. You're a good kid, and I want to help you with your history exams. You're aware the last 3 haven't gone so well. I know! I tried to study, but I'd like to suggest we try something. Oh no, here it came, right? What was he going to say? All of the typical solutions started running through my head, and frankly, they always felt like punishments. Was he going to push me to a lower level group? Was he going to hold me back a year? Was he going to push me back to 3rd grade? I mean, honestly, I was terrified. I think we should have you take the test again. You mean right now? No. Tomorrow, and the day after that, and the day after that if we need to. I don't understand. Exactly. And we're going to make sure you do. My 4th grade teacher, Mr. Littlejohn, made it his mission to prove to me that I could in fact learn the information for a test and pass that test. And he did so by allowing me to take the test as many times as I needed to. Now, for most kids, this is the perfect scam, right? I mean, how often do you get pulled over for speeding and you can just say to the officer, sorry about that, let me pull a U-turn and try that again. But what he was proving to me was much more important than the fact that I could pass a test. What he was showing me is what I could accomplish when I really focused my efforts. And what does that mean exactly? When you think you're dumb, you think you've been given a bad hand, and that you're always going to be the weird kid in the room. I'm sure everybody on this call today knows what it feels like to think they're the weird person in the room. But somehow I figured out 2 things. One was that time was something everybody was given the same amount of. And 2 was that I could decide how I wanted to use that time. So my effort became my greatest ally. And with test anxiety removed and a safety net under me, I was given the opportunity to figure out how I learn. What was it going to take to unlock my brain? And you know what? What I came to find is I'm actually pretty smart. But kind of like a safe that's full of money, my brain had a complex combination. And thanks to my cousin Kevin, I came to figure out that I'm a visual learner. And basically what that means is I like picture books. But did you know that almost any book can become a picture book with a little imagination?
Come with me, and you'll be in a world of pure imagination. Take one look and you'll see into your imagination. We'll begin with a spin, traveling in the world of my creation. What you'll see will defy explanation. If you want to view paradise, simply look around and view it. Anything you wanted to it, want to change the world, there's nothing to it. There is no life I know to compare with pure imagination. So go there to be free if you truly wish to be. You will find in your mind there's a world of endless fascination. No fun place to be than your imagination. You can dream any dream. You can savor every situation. Life in there's a sensational sensation. If you want to see magic lands, close your eyes and you will see one. Want to be a dreamer, be one. Anytime you please, and please save me one. There is no place to go to compare with your imagination. So go there to be free if you truly wish to be.
At this point in the story, I'm sure it's not going to shock anyone that I never did become the greatest test taker. I was a really hard worker, so my homework was spot on, and by high school my grades were pretty good. Unfortunately, homework is not a part of the ACT. And what a horrible idea, right? Let's take a visual learner with dyslexia and test anxiety, let's stick him in a room for 8 hours and test him all day, and let's use that to determine if he belongs in college. So that does not go well for me. And my mother says, well, you could tutor and take the test again. And truly, I just thought the entire concept was so ridiculous that I dismissed it without a second thought. So my mother says, well, how are you going to get into college? And I said, well, I can sing. I said, any college who doesn't like the way I sing, I don't want to go to school there. And I said, and besides, my grades are good. So really, what kind of morons put that much weight into one single test? And to me, this made complete, perfect sense. Little did I know how close I would come to receiving a rejection letter. And if that didn't worry my mom enough, I was only inspired to apply to one college. And not the local junior college. No, of course, I had to apply to one of the best private music conservatories in the Midwest. Our next applicant is Keith Harris, who comes to us highly recommended. Gets a glowing letter of recommendation from his teacher. His grades are excellent. His ACT scores. Wow. What would you like to sing for us, Keith? I would like to sing without a song. Because without a song, I have no chance of getting into this place.
Without a song, the day would never end. Without a song, the road would never end. When things go wrong, a man needs not a friend. Without a song, that field of corn would never see a plow. That field of corn would be deserted now. A man is born, but he's no good, no how. Without a song, I got my trouble and know, but sure as you know that you're the river, I'll get along as long as the song is sung in my soul. I'll never know what makes the rain to fall. I'll never know what makes the grass so tall. I only know there ain't no love at all without a song.
So I got into the college of my choice. Lawrence University in Appleton, Wisconsin, a private college and music conservatory with a scholarship in vocal performance. Now, as I've already said, I learned early on in life that time was my friend, and I was given as much time as any famous singer or millionaire. So I took on Lawrence with a vicious work ethic. So much so that by my junior year, I was exhausted and getting sick quite often, and quite often coming down with a bronchial infection. So clearly something had to change. I had to take better care of my health. And by then I have to admit, I really enjoyed learning. But taking voice classes, music theory, music history, and all of those languages at the same time really took a toll on my brain, especially when they happened all at the same time, which is what happens in the Carmina Burana. The Carmina Burana is a terrific tour de force for the baritone, and this performance comes from David Geffen Hall at Lincoln Center.
Et insecta decit voluntas mea est. Et climane me ecclesia et taberna, pos vesperum nudus et sic denudatus, veste clavi. Gaudia, obscuris omnia.
So I decided I was going to get 8 hours of sleep every night. If my homework didn't get done, so be it. If I flunked my classes because I ran out of time, at least I was going to be physically healthy. So in other words, I had reached the end of my rope, and I needed a new flight plan in order to continue my journey.
That live and those that die, who sing a lullaby. I wanna cry. I wanna pray that all my wishes could come true after today. And should I put a word for you in, should I say an extra treaty? I wanna pray. I wanna lie. I wanna think that things are better than they are. I wanna think we've gotten further and that far. It's just an inch away. Like that and other things. I want two brothers, one who laughs and one who sings. I hope the future brings a horse with wings. I want to know the things they told me way back then were really so. before I go, not barely just get by. I wanna fly.
So I started utilizing some of my precious time to get some rest and get a good night's sleep. And an amazing thing happened. I made the Dean's List for the first time in my life. And I stayed on the Dean's List every single term until I graduated, and I missed graduating with honors by 0.1%. My homework was getting done faster. The information I was learning was actually staying in my brain, and the extra rest was doing amazing things for my voice. Fast forward to where this story began. About 15 years after I graduate from Lawrence, I'm now singing professionally. I've made my Metropolitan Opera debut. I've made my European Opera debut, and I've even sung at Carnegie Hall. And because I have learned how I learn, I have developed a reputation for memorizing large scores of music very quickly, making me a popular substitute for a last-minute contract when another singer gets sick and has to cancel at the last minute. And around this time, I am contracted to sing the baritone solos for the Carmina Burana in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And the conductor says to me that he happens to be very good friends with the dean of the Lawrence University Music Conservatory. And as such, he and his wife would be attending the concert. And this was a great surprise for me because they were always both so supportive of me during my Lawrence years, and knowing they would be there really took me back. And I have to admit, I was absolutely determined to give them the show of their life.
Have the clear eyes of a seeker of wisdom and truth. Yet there's that upturned chin and that grin of impetuous youth. Oh, I believe in you. I believe in you. I hear the sound of good, solid judgment whenever you talk. Yet there's that bold, brave spring of a tiger that quickens your walk. Oh, I believe in you. I believe in you. And when my faith in my fellow man all but falls apart, I but to feel your hand clasping mine, and I take heart, to feel the clear eyes of a seeker of wisdom and truth. Yet there's that slam, bang, tang, reminiscent of gin and vermouth. Oh, I believe in you. I
After the concert, we go out to dinner. And after the small talk had died down, Dean Dotson's wife, Alberta, turns to me and she says, "Did you ever know you were almost not accepted into Lawrence?" No, I did not know this. So I said, "Oh, my ACT scores." And she said, "Yes." And I said, "Well, they weren't very good." And she laughed and said, "No, they weren't." Then she tells me she was in the room when the college and the conservatory were fighting over me. And she said the college said, "We can't possibly accept someone with this low an ACT score." And she said, and then the conservatory said, "Yeah, but his grades are good and he can sing." Then she says to me, "Did you know that today Lawrence no longer requires an ACT score with their applications?" No, I had no idea. In fact, I had no idea how much both the college and the conservatory were secretly celebrating my successes and the successes of a bunch of other students just like me, so much so that they would change the application process to admit more weird kids like me into the program. And the best thing about this story is that I never knew any of it. We have such a need for immediate gratification that if we don't see our mission progressing in our way and in our time, we assume it's not happening. I got into Lawrence because I wanted to sing. And because I was true to myself and what I knew was right in my gut, I was part of a movement that was so much bigger than myself, and frankly, so much more important than anything I ever could have imagined. So, how often are we making a difference because of who we are, not just because of what we do? When I was in middle school, my parents gave me a poster, and the picture is of a sprinter going over a hurdle. And the caption says, "If you cannot win, make the person ahead of you break the record." I hope my story shows that we are all worth infinitely more than we tend to imagine. So we should tend to imagine big. Because chances are, you are already a part of something even bigger.
Impossible dream, to fight the unbeatable foe, to bear with unbearable sorrow, to run where the brave dare not go, to right the unrightable wrong, to love pure and chaste from afar, to try when your arms are too weary, to reach the unreachable star. This is my quest, to follow that star, no matter how hopeless, no matter how far, to fight for the right without question or pause, to be willing to march into hell for a heavenly cause. And I know if I'll only be true to this glorious quest, that my heart will lie peaceful and calm when I'm laid to my rest. And the world will be better for this, that one man, scorned and covered with scars, still strove with his last ounce of courage to reach
Thank you so much, Keith, for sharing your story and your awesome voice with us. Our virtual chalice extinguishing is adapted from Joyce Rupp and Makrana Vierker. Read with me. As we extinguish this flame, we affirm our gratitude for the blessings of autumn, season of the heart's yearning. You usher us into places of mystery, and like the leaves, we fall trustingly into eternal, unseen hands. We hope that each of you on your individual path through the joys and questions of life found some common ground with your fellow travelers here today. After benediction, we invite you all to unmute, turn on your cameras, and join the open discussion. Keith will be with us for questions and discussion. The adult small groups will start at 11:30. Today's benediction is by Keith Harris.
First, I want to offer just a very special thank you for having me. It has been such a pleasure to speak for you and share today. And a very special thank you to Marge, who, as you can see, I ran absolutely crazy, learning all kinds of technical skills and going back and forth, and in beautifully executing probably your most complicated service yet. Thank you so much, Marge. I appreciate your efforts. And now, may we all know that beautiful and insecure and even maybe weird kid in all of us, and change the world simply by honoring our truest selves. I wish you peace.
Go in peace.